What's up, everybody? How you doing?
Hi, Nick.
Hello,
Hey,
hello.
so Eric, I know you're kind of new to podcast hosting, but you don't just wave when somebody talks to you because it's audio. So if
Oh,
you just
okay. Okay.
welcome, welcome back.
Noted.
Hey, we got another guy back here too. What's up, Dave?
Hey, not too much. Thanks for
Did you move?
welcoming me back. We're in process right now. Moving is always a lot more work than you want it to be, especially this one, but we're getting
Yeah.
close to the end.
Yeah, I got some flack from Mike and Paul, the Making Chips guys, about like how I talked about moving for 4 months and how hard it was, and then
Mhm.
Mike just goes, "Hey, do you notice how Paul moved and we didn't even know about it?" and then they were like, "Why didn't you hire movers?" And I'm like, "Hey guys, I did hire movers. You know, the problem is like my wife and I didn't have anything in boxes." So they just moved the big stuff, and then they looked at me, these two guys, and they were like, "Well, what do we do now? You know, you want us to move all your miscellaneous items?" And I ended up doing way too much. So hopefully you're better than me, Dave.
The takeaway here is be more like Paul.
Yeah, be more like Paul and hopefully more like Klaus and less like Gary, because I don't know. I mean, we got some good feedback on the first episode, but there's a lot of people who are heartbroken over Gary's struggles, and I think it might get worse today.
Yeah, Gary's in a tough spot.
Poor Gary.
Dave, you were just a listener. You weren't on the episode. So as a listener, what did you think?
Yeah, as your man on the outside, you know what? I think it's super relatable, right? Because we've all been in those seasons of working in a business where things are incredibly busy and you're just trying to throw stuff at the wall to see what sticks. But the reality is when there's no underlying strategy, especially in this case, some kind of an automation strategy, that journey can just be fraught with peril, which is exactly what we're seeing here. So probably a lot of the sadness for Gary is due to the fact that I bet you a lot of people can relate to what he's going through.
A lot of Garys out there. What's your takeaway, Eric?
No, I mean, I'm going to agree with Dave, right? I think that in any part of that story, probably most shop owners, production managers, I mean, everybody can probably find some symmetry for either what's going on in their shop now, or, I mean, maybe even a manufacturing challenge they've already been fortunate enough to address, right?
Yeah. Speaking of challenges to address, today's episode, I wish I could tell you that everything gets better for Gary, but you know, I'll get to reading here. I don't want to ruin the story. Probably doesn't. Okay. Spoiler alert. Gary wasn't exactly set up for success. And but before we go into it today, like the whole reason we're doing this narrative is we truly want to equip and inspire people to think about lights out the right way. And I think it's essential to have some sort of background understanding of lean concepts if you're going to be involved in, you know, anything related to improving processes or automating things or just throughput in general. So I want to talk about the 8 wastes of lean, and we will pick them out of the story as I read today, but in no particular order. One of the wastes is defects. So that would be waste from a product or service that fails to meet customer expectations. In this case, you know, parts out of spec, parts out of tolerance. Another one, and this one can be a little bit counterintuitive for people, but like overproduction. So this one's probably the most obvious in the story. After the robot gets applied, he starts producing a lot, but it's more than the customer's demand. And a concept we use a lot at Goldner Inc. is the customer isn't just the person who buys the products from us, the company that buys the products that we ship the finished product to. It's whoever's next in line. And so you want to have like a lean, you know, what's the name of Klaus's shop? Lean stream. It's, you know, a constant flow. It's not these spikes, these peaks and valleys where everyone's like super stressed or they don't have anything to do. And so when you're overburdening the bottleneck by overproduction, that's obviously one of the forms of waste that we're witnessing in the story. Another is waiting. So anytime you're waiting in queue, we call this white space a lot at the business, but just something's just sitting there. No one can touch it. We're waiting Eric, remember when you were telling me your swear words in sales?
Yes.
What are they again?
Following up, checking in. those are the worst ones.
Following. Yeah. And for me, do you remember what I said?
You'll have to remind me. I apologize.
Hey, I'm just waiting on.
Oh yeah, waiting on. Yeah. Absolutely.
So it's like, well, then figure out what the next step is. Don't just have this be like, oh, someday they'll get back to me. I'm always like, all right, let's work with whoever's next and be like, well, can we commit to a date?
Yeah, absolutely.
For a certain date. This is probably my favorite one. We're putting it right in the middle here. I wish I would have bookended it, but I'm reading from a list. Unused talent or unused employee creativity. A lot of times when you see like a list of the wastes in lean, it's 7 of them, and sometimes it doesn't include this one, which I think is insane, because this I think is maybe the most important form of waste. You've got a team that you're treating humans like robots, and so you're not letting them use their God-given gifts and their creativity. We were put on this earth to create things and to create solutions to problems, and what happens, and you'll see in the story today, like people get locked into a certain thing and then they just become, I say this a lot, right? The humans are taking the robot jobs. It's not the other way around.
Correct. Yeah. No, that's a great way of putting it.
Yeah, because it's always like, oh, if we had automation, people will lose their jobs. And I'm like, that's the jobs nobody wants to do anyway. So next is transportation or motion, sometimes it's called, but it's just wasted time and resources and costs when unnecessarily moving products and materials. So we'll be able to point some of this out in the story today. Then there's inventory, when you have waste resulting from excess products and materials that aren't processed. Carrying too much inventory, any finance person knows that could be a killer.
Sure. Operation to operation to operation, right? WIP. Yeah.
Actually, I said transportation is sometimes motion. Those are actually 2 different things. Motion is wasted time and effort related to unnecessary movements by people. So like sometimes people, when they first do like value stream mapping, they realize like, why is this here and that on the other side of the shop? Like what? That little travel time might take 30 seconds or 2 minutes or whatever it is to get from one corner to the other, but you add that up and it's a huge waste over the course of a year.
So I understand this correctly, Nick, then when we're talking about motion, like this would be why people might like build a manufacturing cell or focus on like one piece workflow or something like that.
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah. Think of all the reasons someone might leave a machine to go get something, whether that's tooling, materials, maybe instructions from a document or from a superior.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Transportation, though, I had these kind of blended together because they're so similar. That's wasted time, resources, and costs on unnecessarily moving products and materials, whereas motions is like, people unnecessarily moving around. And when I think about motion, I always think about like when they break down quarterbacks in the NFL or when they're like assessing rookie quarterbacks. And they're like, man, there's so much wasted motion in there. Or a golfer. If someone with a bad swing has like wasted motion in their swing and it's less efficient and there's more opportunities.
You can use my name in that case if you want, Nick.
Yeah, you can say Dave.
Dave or Charles Barkley swing a golf ball. And then the 8th is extra processing. So this is waste related to more work or work that's higher quality than is required. So this is where the Klauses of the world and the Germans are like, oh, they over-engineered it. Or, we had it exactly where it needed to be, and then we took it one step further. So it's in sales. It's when you've already got the commitment and they keep selling it to you. It's like, just shut up. Go ahead, Dave. Yeah.
I was just going to say on the extra processing, right? Sometimes prints are over toleranced, sometimes they're under tolerance,
Mm-hmm.
but that the product you want going out of your machine shop is going to be fantastic quality and give a great impression. So I always find that's a bit of a two-edged sword, even if it's not calling out for all machines, all sides to be machined on a part. A lot of people might choose to do it anyways, just so that the parts that are going out the door look really, really nice.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. There's a fine line there, right? Between like providing this incredible, unparalleled experience and then just like over processing things and being wasteful. It's funny because it's really easy to be on different sides of the line depending on kind of your generation, your personality, how you think about things. But we would talk, and I know this is kind of not the same thing, but we would talk with my grandfather who invented a sewing machine about how the enclosure is going to look and the aesthetics of the machine. And he's just like, that doesn't help production at all. Nobody cares about it. And then my thought was like, well, someone's going to spend over $1 million on a piece of capital equipment. They're going to want to like kind of show it off and have it look cool. And there's like a within reason caveat there, right? You know, it doesn't need to look like a Lamborghini with all these bends and glossy paint and things like that. But, you know, at the same time, like if it just looks like something that came from iron clunk machining and is really clunky and ugly, you know, get problems. So. All right, get you guys ready to dive in.
Yeah, I can't wait for part 2 of this story. Yeah, episode 2.
Cue the scene. Should we reiterate where we left off last time a little bit?
Just actually, because you know people may not have. So first off, if you haven't listened to any of this story yet, we've got the first episode in the bag. You can find it, you know, one episode behind this one, and it's probably going to be 4, maybe 5 total episodes. But we're telling a narrative of Klaus and Gary. And how did it end for us, Dave?
Yeah, so towards the end of the previous episode, Gary was awarded a big job from Shrewd Tech Enterprises, and you know, Shrewd Tech even indicated that they thought they were taking a bit of a chance on Gary. This was his opportunity to show them what he had to offer. So he had a bit of anxiety going into this job, and now we need to see if he's able to deliver on it or not.
He's got that shiny new cobot ready to rip and make tons of money on this Shrewd Tech deal, right?
Yeah, and he thinks he's going to make tons of money. He thinks he's going to be just like Klaus because he wants to maximize the spindle utilization.
Please, no spoilers.
Yeah, he also only got the job because he underbid Klaus. Klaus was too busy. He bid it super low. So there's no tons of money when you do that. And yeah, he's just trying to improve the wrong metrics without spoiling it too much. So let's dive in.
I wonder if that cobot's going to solve all his problems or not. I'm so eager to find out.
Yeah, we are really bad at spoilers. It's like, I didn't say exactly what I bought you for Christmas. I just described everything about it. That's what I do with my wife. Okay. Here we go. So the Shrewd Tech contract was supposed to save Iron Clunk Machining, but Gary's cobot, a used relic from an online auction, turns his shop into a pressure cooker. The robot churns out parts overnight, loading and unloading, an auto-clamping single station, but still dinosaur vise, on one of the 3-axis mills. But the cobot is blind to quality. Parts pile up, half out of tolerance, amplifying the bottleneck at Earl's quality department. Bill and Bob, the veteran machinists, fumble with the cobot setup, cursing its cryptic controls. No manual, no support, because remember, they got it from an auction, and it's just Gary watching YouTube videos until dawn. And so to make it work, he sinks more cash into replacing the automatic vise. Its clamp-unclamp cycle was a complete mystery that he deciphers through trial and error, and all of that tied up his mill for several days. After getting it to work without human intervention, the shop's chaos deepens because piles of raw material clog the floor, job travelers vanish, and the cobot's relentless output only feeds the mess, which is, of course, guys, a textbook case of overproduction waste, burying Iron Clunk in inventory that it cannot process.
Man, it sounds like Gary's trying to fight fire with fire over here.
That's a great way to put it.
Yeah, I think we even mentioned that in last week's episode, right? But this is like the classic case of throwing good money on top of bad, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So we use the term dinosaur vise a lot because we don't want to name names, and you know, there's some brands out there that make a particular kind of vise, and also those same brands make more modern vices too. But what is a dinosaur vise, Eric? What does that mean? You're the work holding expert.
Sure. I mean, it's, I always like to look at it like it's almost, the vise is almost agnostic, right? It's a very just archaic way of looking at clamping a work piece, right? So in this scenario, congratulations, the vise opens and closes by itself, but it's big, it's bulky, it requires a lot of material for a rigid clamp, it requires a ton of lateral force for that rigid vibration-free clamp. So what you run into really is a work holding, a clamping device that has cut off accessibility, right? So now you've got a robot loading an operation, but that part's got to be flipped 4, 5, 6 times before you get a finished part, right? And every time we flip it, you open up the door for scrap, rework, pick any of the 8 wastes, right?
Yeah. Well, it's kind of like maybe it would be transportation or motion, but unnecessary to have that many flips.
Yeah. And then, you're limiting the amount of material you can clamp because of all that lateral force. I always referred to it as the gentleman who comes over with the pipe and the mallet as Johnny Cheater Bar, right? Now, you might not have that in an automatic vise, but you're still cutting off accessibility. You're still really putting a lot of limitations on an automated process.
Johnny Cheater Bar. He needs to be in the story. Where were you when me and ChatGPT were writing this? Johnny Cheater Bar and Flippy Longstocking running the machining department.
Flippy Longstocking. I think he just named the cobot.
One thing I think about though too is like when I try to describe a dinosaur vise to somebody, I'm like, look at the stock that you're clamping, and then if the vise is like 5 times the size and weight, that's a dinosaur vise.
Yeah, it really is.
And if you're clamping one at a time, that's another challenge. But anyway, not to make this all about the work holding, there's some other things that we notice here in scene 1. Anything else that you guys are picking up on?
I think that, I'll just point out quickly that, you can kind of see the foundation being laid here for what happens when you don't, leverage an expert, bring in someone who's successfully automated processes before. You really kind of, there's a saying, right? A blind hog will find an acorn every once in a while, right? And so
I thought it was a blind squirrel finds a nut.
Okay.
I've never heard the hog acorn thing, but that must be Wisconsin.
Thanks for a better visual, Nick.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Dave. But, all the, not having a manual, no support because he bought it second. I'm looking at the money that Gary thinks he saved buying this thing on eBay and the amount of time and energy he's got trying to integrate it. I mean, I'm doing the math in my head in a paragraph and a half, and I can tell you with certainty that he's in the red zone right now.
Yeah, exactly. Not the good kind that
Not
the
the good
Bears
kind.
are always in
It's
against
not
the
just
Packers.
like them trying to kind of be their own support team, but it's also the lost opportunity of that mill being tied up for several days, right? So if that's your best producing piece of equipment and it's down, not only is there issues with this job with the amount of inventory piling up and poor, the scrap rate might be high, but it's also all your other jobs are piling up as well with that mill being out of commission for several days.
Caleb alluded to that last week, right? Spindle up time's amazing with the new robot, but you're not taking into consideration the 4 days it was down, right? Overall productivity is...
Yeah, that's a really good point. That's what jumped out to me too. Whatever he thinks he saved by getting this used cobot at an option, he just lost it all in trying to figure it out with YouTube videos and not having any support and having to rebuy another automatic vise because the first one wasn't working repeatably and reliably. So
it's frustrating. Bill and Bob.
You can appreciate where his mind is at, right? He knows that the margins are super tight on this job. There's a lot hinging on this process working. So he's just doing whatever he can to make it work.
Yeah, you root for Gary because he's got grit and he really has the effort, and I don't think anyone could say he's got an attitude problem. He's just got a knowledge problem. So let's get to the next part here. So, okay. Bill and Bob seethe, their pride bruised, First, they weren't consulted about the cobot, and now it's reducing them to deburring parts while it sluggishly loads the vise. It was slower than they ever were. The robot's grippers limit the mill to one specific job, the job they lowered all the margins on, which slashes versatility, and it doesn't deburr parts, leaving them to clean up its mess. We're janitors now, Bob mutters, tossing a scrap part into a growing reject bin, and Bill sarcastically disagrees. Don't flatter us. It's our job to babysit Gary's pet robot. Earl, the quality guy, hates it the most. Before, he could catch drifting tolerances by talking to Bill and Bob and getting them corrected. The cobot is running unchecked overnight, and it produces a mountain of parts each morning. Many in that mountain are defective because no one is there to adjust offsets. The scrap rates soar, and Earl is stuck helping to deburr. His inspections are falling further behind. The shop's spindle utilization rises when everything works as planned, but it's inconsistent and unreliable. Availability of the machine is unpredictable, from setup delays and troubleshooting issues like missed clamps and chips stuck in the auto vise. Machining performance lags as the speeds and feeds are slow to coddle the delicate, unattended process, and quality craters under defective parts as Earl begins each day with a pile of parts to check. Eventually catching up, but never in sync with the machinist to help catch scrap and course correct before it's too late. One Monday morning, after the cobot had an unusually productive weekend, Earl looks upon a mountain, not a pile. He hasn't checked anything yet, but he already knows that mountain is full of hidden scrap. Gary walks in with a big, ignorant smile, proud of himself. He's achieved a weekend full of unattended production, and he pats himself on the back. Hey, Earl, hope you got a good night's sleep. You're going to have to break records to keep up. And that struck a nerve. Earl snaps. If we read what he said aloud, this podcast would be slapped with the E tag seconds after we publish it. But I could just tell you, Earl throws his badge on the bench. He quits in a fury, leaving Gary staring speechlessly at a quality void.
Oof.
Goodness gracious.
Bill, Bob, Earl, they're all really mad. And to use a scary movie reference, this call's coming from inside the house, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. No, exactly. And he's like, hey, you're going to have to break records. If there's one flaw in Gary's like attitude or him as a person, it's kind of showing a big lack of empathy for his team. Starting with, hey, I'm going to like bid really low on a job and we're going to automate it because I have this weird jealousy of Klaus, and I'm not going to include any of my team in the process. And if he did that, he'd probably have a team that figures out how they can all be more valuable than just babysitting a cobot and deburring parts.
Yeah, interesting, hey, because the automation should be lifting the team up. In this case, it's actually kind of demoted them. I mean, why the heck is that deburring process not happening in the machine? And my goodness,
Yeah.
Earl, what happened to in-process checks? Does that just go by the wayside because you started automating the process?
Yes. Two things that I was thinking of as well. Yeah, exactly.
They clearly didn't consider this when they were designing the process.
Yeah.
It's clearly a case of unused talent, right? I mean, you have veteran machinists doing that stuff. Earl seems to be, from what I've read, a pretty solid QC guy, but I think the lesson here is maybe a bit of a leadership lesson too, right? As manufacturing leaders, it's easy to get really excited about your plans and what you want to do and accomplish, but there's something called buy-in, right?
Mm-hmm.
And really kind of think he would have been a good spot to maybe meet with the team before he bought Flipsy, what was it? Flippy Longstocking?
Flippy Longstocking. Yeah, exactly. I think what it really says to your team when you don't include them on like any, because this isn't just like like purchasing more cutting tools to do the process the same way or whatever. Like you maybe don't need to consult everyone on your team to do that. This is a radical shift in how they're going to process parts. And what it really says when you don't include your team on that is like, I don't think you have anything to add to this decision. I'm going to make it without you.
Right. And automation, especially tending automation, depending on the facility, can be a sensitive topic. I mean, there's still kind of that view that these yellow arms are coming in to replace us, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think both you guys touched on it at the beginning of the episode. That's rarely the case, right?
Yeah, exactly. I like what Dave said about deburring in the machine and putting quality nearby, right? Like quality checking at the machine. The argument against deburring in the machine would be like, well, I'm making my cycle time longer, and maybe I could run more parts with, and keep that deburring externally and whatever. But again, no understanding of where the bottleneck is. The bottleneck is actually in quality. That's why Earl is so frustrated. And even let's say there wasn't that case. Let's say there was no quality bottleneck. You want to deburr in the machine when you're running lights out, because you're either getting no machining done or you're getting a complete job done, ready to get checked. It's not about like the speed of the cycle when you're running through the night. You're just trying to get that many hours of kind of free unattended machining without interruptions.
Yep.
Yeah. All right. Ready for the next scene?
Let's go.
Let's hit it.
So Gary's home life. Oh no.
Linda.
It's taking a personal turn now.
Yeah. Right. Gary's home life crumbles under the strain. Linda's fed up with his late night trips to check the cobot, her voice sharp. If you leave again, I won't be here when you get back. And desperate to stay home, Gary buys a machine monitoring system. Its sleek dashboard mocking him with data he barely understands. Hey, spindle utilization is up, but the numbers lie because parts are scrapped and the shop is drowning. Sleepless, he checks his phone obsessively, wondering if the automation's helping or hastening Iron Clunk's collapse. With Earl gone, Bill and Bob try manual checks, but they can't program the CMM, and the quality grinds to a halt. The shop's value stream is a nightmare. Waiting waste from idle mills, inventory waste from stacked parts, and motion waste as workers scramble through the clutter. Gary's dream of rivaling Klaus's lean stream feels like a cruel joke. Yeah. The story just listed the wastes for us. We don't even need to break it down.
Yeah.
Good job, ChatGPT. Yeah. Let's move on to the next scene.
Yeah.
Recruiting a new quality manager becomes Gary's obsession, but he's out of his depth. He burns cash on a LinkedIn Recruiter Premium account, and he's wincing at the cost. He fumbles through job posts, painting Iron Clunk as a dynamic workplace while chaos reigns. After weeks, he finds Sarah, a sharp candidate, ready to start, but her salary demand and a rival's signing bonus offered by Klaus's lean stream put her out of reach. Gary's broke, his cash flow's gutted by the cobot, the vice, the monitoring system, and everything else. And Sarah joins LeanStream as a quality and continuous improvement manager, a gut punch that leaves Gary reeling. He's copied Klaus's tools, his automation, his monitoring, but without lean principles, he's built a house of cards. This shop's a mess, his marriage hangs by a thread, and Iron Clunk is bleeding out.
Well, I'm glad Linda made it back into the story. I'm a little upset that they're still having marital woes. But what I love is the clue that got dropped into this scene of the story, right? And Gary is obsessed with finding a quality manager, but LeanStream hired a quality and continuous improvement manager.
Bingo. I love it, Eric. You can't disconnect quality from continuous improvement. Like Lean Six Sigma. Six Sigma is like a quality reference to like how many standard deviations away from the norm things are. And right, like why is it so often not about metrology or checking parts when you talk about Lean or Six Sigma or things like that? It's because like in order to achieve that quality, you really need to have a more well-rounded lean background and foundation. Klaus understands that. Sarah's probably thrilled to have an opportunity that if you take a job in continuous improvement, the sky's the limit. I mean,
absolutely.
Any career in any industry, if you have a continuous improvement mindset, you're going to be successful. And so it's sometimes it's like little nuances like that, like how you position a role to a candidate that'll
And I think it speaks to another problem, right? And it's Gary seems to be plugging holes in the Hoover Dam with bubble gum, right? He stops one, and then another one shoots water in his face, and he stops that one, and
Yeah. Whack-a-mole.
yeah, exactly. Where it's like really needs to be looking at the entire workflow, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, completely. All right. You guys ready to get into the fifth scene?
Yes, I am.
Cool.
Absolutely.
On the edge of my seat again this week.
Let's hope Linda doesn't leave here.
Yeah, I mean, in fairness, Linda deserves better, so hopefully things get resolved.
Get it together. Get it together, Gary. The final blow comes when Mr. Green from Shrewd Tech calls. The first shipment arrived late. It's incomplete. It's riddled with defects. Gary, let me talk to you, young man. We trusted you. This is unacceptable. Gary's vision blurs. His chest gets tight. He doesn't know what to do, so he dials Klaus. His voice is raw with desperation. I needed that hire, Klaus. My business, my marriage, everything's falling apart. You're the villain here. You're stealing my shot while Iron Clunk dies. You win, okay? You've buried me. And then he slams the phone down, tears stinging his eyes. Minutes later, the phone rings. Klaus calls back. His voice is calm. It's empathetic. Lunch tomorrow, Gary. Let's talk. Over sandwiches, Klaus doesn't gloat. He offers a lifeline, a partnership, buying an equity stake in Iron Clunk and consulting with Gary to help him turn it around. But you've got to commit, Klaus says. Actually, it would move on like this. But you've got to commit.
I was waiting for you.
I was hoping
to come in with
the
that.
accent would come back.
I knew it.
It's even worse than before. I should be good at a German accent. My company is full of German people.
Your family is full of German people. What do you mean your company?
Well, my company, my
There's some
family, well
overlap
blur
there, in
together.
fairness.
You've got to commit, he says, and he slides a worn copy of the book, The Goal, across the table. Start here. Get to the chopper. Map your shop's flow. So basically, Klaus is Arnold Schwarzenegger.
That's awesome.
Okay, and he's here to be the action.
That's
hero.
an even better visual now. Maybe ChatGPT can use that to create an image for this episode.
Gary, grab my hand.
I will help you.
All right.
No, I think now I'm just picturing twins like Danny DeVito and Arnold Schwarzenegger, but they run shop. All right, let's stop jacking around here. Dave, you were about to make a thoughtful point. Go ahead.
I don't know about thoughtful, but it sounds like Gary's going into cardiac arrest after that call with Mr. Green from Shrewd Tech. By the way, Mr. Green really sounds like a good villain name. The way you read that, it's good.
You know what it's named after? The opposite of the villain, the nicest guy you'll ever meet. He's the quality and continuous improvement guy at Hennig. His name's Josh Green.
Oh, that's so
the
good.
quality guy
Nice.
from Shrewd Tech or whatever, Mr. Green,
Shout out to Josh.
Yeah.
But then Gary takes it like it's been this kind of personal competition against Klaus. And it's like he concedes, like, you win, almost as if like Cloud's success was intentionally spiteful against Gary. And then Klaus is kind of like, dude, tell you what, I'll come over and help. And he just responds in like a nice way.
Yeah. That's pretty cool, actually. Because have you ever had that have you ever had someone like lash out at you in life, like, and you're like, whoa, like this is like a way deeper problem than I realized. Like you've had this weird rivalry thing, Gary. And
Yeah,
I'm just over here trying to
behind the scenes for a while.
Yeah. So I mean, Klaus could have been like, screw this guy, he's a weirdo, but instead he responded like very Christ-like. I really like it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think what's cool about this is like he knows the real problem here. So he's like, there's something in it for Klaus here, right? He wants to buy an equity stake in Iron Clunk. So like Gary, he sees the potential. You wouldn't do that if you thought this was a sinking ship with no future, right?
Absolutely.
So he's like, hey, look, you have tons of problems that you've created for yourself by trying to copy me in the wrong way. And you're out of cash, and the few people you still have working for you are probably this close to quitting. So instead of just like giving you a book and being like, hey, do your best, dude, that would be too little too late. He's actually going to come in, make an investment in the business. And now he's got skin in the game beyond just like being a kind guy. And he's here to help. I think that's a great part of the story.
Absolutely.
Okay, when we got lost in the whole Arnold Schwarzenegger, Nick sucks at German accents thing, what he said after get to the choppa was like, start here and map your shop's flow. And that's like a really important part of any process, whether you're automating or not. Like if you want to be good at manufacturing, you should know how to do that. Be very competent in basically value stream mapping or process mapping or whatever you want to call it. Mapping the flow of work, or the flow of material from start to finish through the shop. Yeah. So let's get to the end here, boys.
Yeah, you've got to take time to look at like the status quo, right? I mean, how else do you know what's improving, how much it's improving, right? Where the true bottlenecks are, the root causes. I mean, without that lens, you're just going to continue to, like you said, whack-a-mole, right?
Yeah. I think I'm so glad you made that point before we moved on. What we've experienced in our business is like when we start to lay out a process and any sort of continuous improvement initiative, you always need to start with like a really good understanding of the current state. And not like some anecdotal, like, yeah, things suck and we're running out of money and we're disorganized. But like in mapping that flow, really nailing down the objective current state and putting some data to it, putting some understanding to it. So often people want to like jump to the solution. Like, we got to do this, we got to do that, we got to do this, we got to do that. Before they've done a good enough job, like making sure they understand the score on the scoreboard as it sits right now.
And it can be hard to like do that super objectively when you're so close to the problem yourself. Like, don't discount the value that like an outside expert can bring to the table by helping you walk through that process. You know, in this case, Klaus bought an equity stake, so he's a business partner, and that might make good sense for a lot of people, but it doesn't have to be a business partner. It can be an outside expert that you're bringing in just to have that outside set of eyes on your situation to see the things that you might not see for yourself.
And I'll add that, like, that impartial view also, it opens up a new set of eyes, but it also doesn't care about why you have these little processes in the places you do, right? Like you might have put a process in to protect a certain call out because something else was going on in that process, where it's like, again, it's that having that fresh set of eyes is just so invaluable.
Yeah, I completely agree. Like you said, in this case, obviously Klaus has more of a reason, more skin in the game to be involved as this third party. She's kind of not anymore once he makes this investment. But let's talk about the MEPs for a second that are very at risk of being defunded right now. Many of them have already been defunded. Like, there's these, in most states, there's access to these incredible programs that will help you do just this, right? And they'll come in and there's more than just that, but that's just a great resource. And, I wish the powers that be would really understand like how much of an impact these MEPs make.
Yeah.
Shout out to Mike Payne, who's kind of leading the charge on that. All right, let's conclude here, boys. The final scene of the day.
Scene 6.
Yeah. Gary returns to Iron Clunk, humbled, the book's weight heavy in his hands. By the way, it's not that heavy. It's a pretty quick read. Just really wanted to add impact to the story. He opens the book. Its pages dog-eared from Klaus's own journey. Words like constraints, flow, and value hit him like lightning. For the first time, he sees the shop's chaos, wastes, bottlenecks, broken streams, not as fate, but as problems he can fight. Klaus stands beside him, pointing to a whiteboard. Gary grabs a marker, his hands trembling, and they start sketching out Iron Clunk's value stream. raw material piles, idle mills, Earl's absent checks, the cobot's overproduction. It's all a mess, but it's his mess. And with Klaus's guidance, a flicker of hope ignites. Can Gary turn Iron Clunk around? That's a story for another day.
Oh,
Ooh, nice.
Let's
Good
go.
ending.
Yeah, what a great, clearly having a bit of a eureka moment here, right?
Yes. A eureka moment. Eureka! I'm just picturing. Hey,
Can't tell if that was
Arnold
German or
Schwarzenegger.
Jamaican. There's somewhere in
I'm
between.
not sure what's, I'm with you, Dave.
I'm bad at
what's
this.
going on.
But what I'm picturing in my head is like Arnold Schwarzenegger with one of those big like Eureka trumpet things from those cough drop commercials.
That's
Gary! That's
Ricola.
Eureka.
It's a lot like Eureka.
It is. I will give you that. Yes. Phonetically, we're there. Yeah.
Well, gentlemen, thank you for joining me and our audience as we try to help Gary survive, keep his marriage together, save Iron Clunk. And we learned a little bit about Klaus's character too. What I love about him is he's like so many other shop owners. We talk about this all the time. We talked about it on the last episode. People who you think are your competitors in this industry, maybe they are. Maybe you compete for the same jobs like Gary and Klaus, but more often than not, they want to help you. They are like really, truly part of this community. Everyone who listens to that, you would be part of this community. Sorry, listens to this podcast, you would be part of the community. You guys, thank you for being part of my community and being able to tell the story with me. It's been a lot of fun. It will continue to be a lot of fun.
I can't wait to see the arrow start moving in the other direction, right? And Klaus is an amazing character, and that's where Caleb is this week, right? He's in Germany, putting together Klaus's backstory for the prequel, the Automation Trap 1, The Phantom Menace.
Yeah. I gotta say, like, you're assuming the arrow's gonna go back up. I'm writing like a really dark comedy. It just keeps going down, and then the Lights Out podcast just ends.
Right, Klaus is gonna liquidate Iron Clunk.
Linda
there's a machine auction coming up for Iron Clunk. Yeah.
Jeez.
Oh no.
Yeah.
No, let's hope it doesn't get to
Linda
that.
end up together. Gary ends up becoming some sort of psycho. No. I think you're right, Eric. Not to spoil the future, but the arrow is going to start moving up. We're going to learn a little bit about value stream mapping. We're going to continue to teach lean automation concepts with the next episode of Lights Out. Guys, thank you for joining me. Let's clap twice and turn the lights out on this episode.
Good thing we were all in sync for that. It's perfect.
That was great.
Awesome, guys.